Hey students, I hope everybody's doing okay. And again, I'm trying to get better with these videos, so please be patient with me. This is another civil rights video, and right now we're going to be talking about gay and lesbians in the civil rights movement, because they too have a civil rights movement. Now, I understand that some people out there don't agree with this, but no, that's not the way it works, okay? They too have a history, and they too have a place in this country, and they ought to have the same rights that everybody else has. You know, for the most part, they just want equal rights and equal opportunities without any discrimination. Now, prior to recent times, and I would say recent times being 1973, because that's when the American Psychiatric uh, uh, Institution, or I forget what it's called, the American Psychiatric Society, decided that homosexuality was no longer a mental disorder. It was, before that it was classified as a mental disorder, um, and all of that. But prior to that, right up to, we really begin to see a movement in gay and lesbian right movement in the United States in the 1920s, 24 and 25. In 1924, when I believe it's, let me see here, make sure, um, a Society for Human Rights is founded by Henry Gerber in Chicago, okay? And that's really when it takes off, okay? After that, you have a Polish-Jewish woman, and I think her name is Eva Klobuchar, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it correct, that starts a tea room in Greenwich Village. And that's one of the first places that, gay and lesbians can actually go and enjoy coffee, tea, or a drink without any discrimination. But prior for that, the first homosexual that was put to death um, in North America was Richard Cornish. He was executed for alleged homosexual acts with his servant in 1624. And you're going to have stuff like that happens, that individuals are not going to be given the time of day. And the a punishment for homosexuality was always death. In 1777, Thomas Jefferson revises Virginia law, and he makes sodomy committed by men or women, um, he makes it punishable by mutilation rather than death. Now, mutilation is still pretty serious, right? But he says that, no, we're not going to punish it by death anymore, okay? Now, you begin to see more of a rise of not just lesbians, but trans women during the Civil War. There are some accounts of trans women serving in the American Revolution. I mean, the U.S. Army Training Manual was practically written by Baron von Steuben, who was militantly gay. And I mean, when he shows up at Valley Forge, he shows up in a sleigh being pulled by some Clydesdales in a purple cloak with his lover. He had been ostracized in Europe for his militant homosexuality, and George Washington takes him in, and he really turns Valley Forge into a success instead of a disaster. So, I mean, it is safe to say that the U.S. Army Training Manual was written or partially written by a Prussian homosexual, okay? And there's no shame in that, okay? During the Civil War, there's an account of about maybe 400 women serving in the Civil War. They did practice what they call banding, which means that they would uh, tightly, like a corset on their breast so they couldn't tell. And the question was, a lot of these women, when they were wounded, they would find out that, hey, wait a minute, these are women. What are we going to do? And then what are we going to do afterwards? Do they receive a pension? And it is my understanding that they did receive a pension afterwards. Also, during the 1960s, you have Walt Whitman in Leaves of Grass that has some homoerotic poems. I think it's the Calamus poems, also that really did that. Also, So you do have individuals there that are doing, but they can't really just come out. Um, there are also some accounts of African American slave women that lived with each other, and there are some accounts of men on the frontier saying that, hey, I came across this Indian tribe and they're okay with men living with men. And um, Native Americans knew the difference between, homosexuality and trans. They actually had different names for them. Himanis, Verdaches, so wasn't something that was just not. I mean, we even have some romantic letters that were written between Alexander Hamilton and I forget who the other gentleman was, but he expresses his love for him, whether it may have been a platonic love. Uh, it was not uncommon for men to express love for each other. And then, of course, we have James Buchanan. Okay, I mean, where do we get the term First Lady? Well, James Buchanan wasn't married, so his sister took care of the task of running the show for him. So they call her the First Lady. So we do have those incidents, but like I said, 1800, 1890s. Everything is always in the background, but really beginning, really, and then we have Oscar Wilde, okay, who we obviously know that he was gay, and he would go around in his theater performances, made no bones about it. He still had to be careful, you know what I mean? Because, it was not okay to be out of the closet. Now, Jane Addams also had a devoted companion. I believe it was Ellen Gates Starr, and they founded the Hull House, okay, in 1889. And you have these instances where you have people like Emma Goldman and who defend homosexuality, and you have Jane Addams, and then later on, of course, we're gonna have uh, Eva Kochever. There it is, Kochever, that starts the Eve. Let me check it right here, real quick. Eve Addams Tea Room in Greenwich Village in 1925, and then of course Henry Gerber and six others start the first gay rights organization in 1924. And it's really after that we begin to see a movement. Of course, we have the voluminous correspondence between Eleanor Roosevelt, and I'm going to have to cheat here and look at her name. She had a friend, let me check right here, Eleanor Roosevelt and Lorena Hickok, okay, uh, that, are very, I would say, not steamy, but very personal romantic conversation between Eleanor Roosevelt and Lorena Hickok. And then in 1935, Sigmund Freud, in a letter to American Mother, is urging compassion and tolerance for homosexuality. So what begins to happen after 1924 is that we begin to see little spots of gay and lesbian flourishing. I would say they're coming out. And most of it, Greenwich Village, Philadelphia. Uh, you have, I don't think San Francisco really at the time yet. That doesn't really happen until the 50s, 60s, and then of course, in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. But you begin to see that they start moving. In 19, I think it's in 48 that Alfred Kinsley publishes Sexual Behavior in the Human Male and reveals a lot of homosexuality. That there is a lot more homosexuality in an American male's life than what was previously thought. Of course, most people are going to say no, that has never happened, or whatever it may be. In 1951, you have, and I don't know how they came up with the name. I actually looked at it. It's pronounced Matachine, but it's actually in Spanish, it's Matachín, which is a dancer. I don't know if it has to do something with a verdache, with Native American. I don't know, but it's the first national gay organization. Okay, and it was Harry Hay that starts it, and it is considered Harry Hay is considered the founder of the gay and lesbian or the gay movement. Okay, in 1955, the first lesbian uh, uh, organization is started in San Francisco, and it is known as the Daughters of Bilitis, or I can never pronounce. I'm really bad at pronunciation. Bilitis. Okay, I'm gonna leave it at that because I don't want to butcher it. Um, and in '56, it becomes a full-fledged organization. Now, in the '50s, it's there's some push there, but you can still get institutionalized for being a gay or lesbian at this time. And in the army, they'll put you to death. They'll hang you. I know that during World War II, they did hang a couple of individuals, but World War II is going to be a big deal because a lot of women, especially the Rosie the Riveter concept, a lot of gay women are going to uh, participate, and a lot of gay women are going to be part of the um, the women that ferry airplanes, or that work in the ammunition factories, or welding, or whatever it may be. But in 1958, then you begin to see movies and plays in Cafe Sino. Okay, you have The Madness of a Bright Lady and The Haunted Host, and this is gonna make individuals uncomfortable, but hey, we all know that this has been going on. So why is it an issue? I mean, why do we continue to make this an issue? Well, I think it's because of intolerance and people not understanding. In 1958, we do have a big landmark case, and if I'm not mistaken, it's the first landmark case where the Supreme Court rules that the Gay and Lesbian magazine won. It cannot be banned, and that it says here in a landmark case, One Incorporated v. Olson, the United States Supreme Court rules in favor of the First Amendment rights of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender magazine. One, the homosexual magazine. The suit is filed after the U.S. Postal Service and FBI declared that the magazine was obscene material, and that it marks the first time that the Supreme Court rules in favor of homosexuals. This is 1958. Okay, so that in itself. Now, in January the 1st of 1961 or 62, Illinois becomes the first state to decriminalize homosexual acts between consenting adults. Okay, so sodomy is no longer against the law. And in Texas, it doesn't happen until much later. Okay, I think it was 2003 or 2008. Okay, so again, you begin to see movements in the late 60s, in the early 60s, 65, and so on, where you have movements in Philadelphia at Independence Hall. But the real big one is in 1969. Okay, and this all has to do with gay and lesbians. They won't serve them at certain restaurants, and there was a restaurant in Greenwich Village called the Stonewall. Okay, uh, and it really turns into people, gay and lesbians, would go to this restaurant or go to this bar, and they would get dressed there. They would do their thing there. But sometimes when they would go out to smoke a cigarette, I don't want to get a breath of fresh air. Um, Intolerant individuals will beat up on them. And what happens here, when the police come, then the police beat them up because the police sees them as, for some reason or another, they feel that, anybody that's a homosexual is a deviant and a pervert, which is not true. Uh, uh, and I think what happens, well, I know what happens here is that on June 27th, there's 3 days of rioting. They finally decide that, you know what? They're going to kill us anyway. So why don't we just go out fighting? And I mean, police cars are overturned. A lot of sympathetic onlookers take the side of the gay and lesbian people. I mean, it's kind of like a 3-day thing where they would riot, and they would go home and then come back and riot some more. But 1969 is really the year that when people really say, we're not going to put up with this anymore. And we're going to come out. So while 68, 69, 70, 72 is really bad time in the United States, it's a really pivotal years for gay and lesbian. Okay, 73, the American Psychiatric Association removes homosexuality from its list of mental disorders. And Harvey Milk, another very important individual, runs for supervisor of San Francisco on a socially liberal platform. He really begins to move. By 76. He is really making a big impact, and the mayor appoints him as under the board of permits. I believe it's, let me see, permits and appeals. Unfortunately, he is assassinated. He's shot by a city employee. Okay, 1977. We have, no, in 78, Harvey Milk is assassinated in 78, I think. I'll check again, I'm sorry. 77, Miami passes civil rights legislation making sexual orientation discrimination in Dade County illegal. And of course, Save Our Children campaign is headed by singer Anita Bryant. Okay, so she's like, for some reason or another, thinks that allowing gay and lesbian people to commingle freely is going to destroy children. I've never been able to get that. So what we begin to see is right around 76, 78, we begin to see gay pride marches in San Francisco, Los Angeles. They do President Carter, Reagan, Governor Brown speak out against the proposition to do this, but the bottom line is that and in the Democratic National Convention, the San Francisco Gay Democratic Club changes its name to the Harvey Milk Memorial Club after his assassination. And we're beginning to see a movement, or a bigger movement in that. Okay, so 1970, let me go a little back, the 1-year anniversary of Stonewall. That is considered to be, they gather to commemorate the Stonewall riots. That is considered to be the United States' first gay and lesbian parade. Let me make sure that I've got this correct. November 27th, 1978, Harvey Milk is assassinated. Okay, and in 1979, they have about 75,000 individuals have the National March on Washington for Gay and Lesbian Rights. In 1980, at the 1980 Democratic National Convention, Democrats take a stand in supporting gay rights. All groups must be protected from discrimination based on race, color, religion, national origin, language, age, sex, and sexual orientation. Okay, so we are seeing a movement here as we're moving along. In 82, Wisconsin becomes the first state to outlaw discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation. 84, the city of Berkeley, California becomes the first city to offer its employee domestic partnership benefits, which is really good. Now, the cool thing about domestic partnership is that it's not just for gay and lesbians. If you don't want, if in a lot of places, if you're not married, your significant other does not get insurance. In this case, your significant other could get insurance. Okay, so a lot of these things are not that obvious or cut and dry. In 1993, Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which again I think is not a good thing, because what you're doing is that you're putting a band-aid over it. But I don't agree. The same year, you have anywhere between 800,000 to 1 million people participate on a march on Washington, and you do have workshops throughout Washington where you have tennis players like Martina Navratilova and other individuals who are gay and not gay give workshops. And this is where they say, Don't Ask, Don't Tell is while it seems like it's good, all it's doing is, if you don't tell me that you're gay, it's okay, but I shouldn't have to worry about telling you that I'm gay. If I'm gay, I'm gay. That's it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Like, I know I'm heterosexual, in the story, and I don't have a problem with somebody that's gay. Now, in 1996, we have Romer versus Evans, um, and the Supreme Court denies Colorado's Amendment 2, which denied gay and lesbian people protections against discrimination. And according to Justice Anthony Kennedy, we find nothing special in the protections of Amendment 2 withholds. These protections constitute ordinary civil life and free society. So Kennedy is saying, Justice Kennedy is saying, there's nothing wrong with homosexuality. Okay, you may think it is, but it isn't. 2000, Vermont becomes the first state to legalize and recognize civil unions between gay and lesbian couples. And then from then it becomes a watershed. Really, in 2003, which is a Texas case of all places, the U.S. Supreme Court rules that Lawrence v. Texas, that sodomy laws in the U.S. are unconstitutional. Pretty much what goes on in your bedroom is nobody's business. Okay, Justice Kennedy again wrote or writes that liberty presumes, the autonomy of self that includes freedom of thought, belief, expression, and certain intimate contact. Okay? In November, after that, Massachusetts Supreme Court bars gay and lesbian people from marrying. It says it violates the state's constitution. And pretty much from then on, the idea is to provide dignity and equality for individuals, because not doing so is creating second-class citizens, okay? On May of 2004, same-sex marriages become legal in Massachusetts. 2005, Connecticut. 6, New Jersey. 2007, the House of Representatives approves a bill ensuring that equal rights in the workplace for gay and lesbian women and bisexuals, okay? February, New York Appeals Court unanimously votes that uh, uh, same-sex marriages performed in other states must be recognized by employers in New York. So if you get married somewhere else, they have to recognize that. And of course, the same year in 2008, California follows suit. And what you're going to have is that you're just going to have a watershed of cases. 2009, of course, let me make sure here, you have Iowa rejects the state law banning same-sex marriage. Then Vermont, a bill allowing gay and lesbian people to marry, legalizing same-sex marriages. And then Maine, New Hampshire, let me make sure. And June 2017, Obama signs referendum allowing same-sex partners of federal employees to receive benefits. Now, believe me, that's very important. If you're in a same-sex marriage and your partner dies or you die, in some instances where same-sex marriages are not recognized, the parents of that individual or the immediate next of kin can come in and take things away from you if those things are not in your name. Okay? You cannot make plans for to bury your loved one if you're in a same-sex marriage in a place where it's not recognized. August the 12th of 2009, President Barack Obama posthumously gives Harvey Milk the Presidential Medal of Honor, and then we begin to see some cases in 2010. In December of 2012, you have the repeal of Don't Ask. What is it? I forgot. I'm sorry. Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Okay, it's been a long day, so I can go on and on and on and on. But a lot of that stuff is recent stuff. But what I want you all to know is that gay and lesbian individuals are human beings, and they're Americans, and they have done a lot for this country. They have served gallantly in the past and in the present. And we should respect them as that. They should be treated like everybody else. They're not second-class citizens. Now, the views here are mine. They're not of the institution that I work for or anybody else, And, but I hope that this has been a good video. I'm sorry I went so long, but I wanted to make sure that I saturated everything pretty good. I know that I missed a lot of stuff. If you have any good critical criticism, feel free to let me know. But it is U.S. history, so just deal with it. I'm sorry, yeah, it is U.S. history, and that's what it is. Y'all take care, be kind to each other, and I will see you later.